Welcome everyone to Rave Psychology. I am super honored to have each of you here, all of you that are here live from all over the world. It's a true honor. And I know that this is a free event, but I do want you to take it seriously as though it is a paid event, okay? Because if you invest in your time and your space, you will get a lot out of this. I am power packing it with so much information. Are you freezing over there, Lucille? Shells, you're here. Oh my God, from NC. Woo, woo. So happy to have you. Oh my God, I'm so excited. This is so much fun. So happy to have all of you guys here. And so I want to tell you a little bit about what inspired this 3-day event. And as I was saying, please mark your calendars. Please make sure you commit to these 3 days because they are going to build on themselves. We're going to introduce information. Each day is going to build. Each day is going to go deeper. Each day is going to provide not just human design intel, but also information about spiritual psychology and about putting these two together in brand new, exciting ways. So it's going to give you guys so many tools as well as information, but also transformational information. So if you're just jumping on, please type in the chat where you're tuning in from. And I want to thank you again for your time, for being here live, because you can feel when everyone's here participating, sharing about their journey, the energy builds, and we all co-create magical experiences together. So for that, I'm super honored. This is your time. It is free, but it is your time. And I do not take that lightly. So I'm really honored to have you here. And like I said, for those of you who just got here, I'm asking for everybody to really try and commit to the 3 days. They will be recorded. So obviously, if you can't make it live, you will be able to catch the recording. But each day is going to build on itself and it's cumulative. And we're going to go deep. We're going to do some transformational work. The rave psychology, okay? What does human design say about neurodiversity, the mind, psychology, how we think, and how we heal from trauma? So, why this is so important to me and why it's so important at this time in history is because for those of you who don't know, my backstory is I have my master's in spiritual psychology. And as a matter of fact, one of my beautiful classmates is here, Melinda, who knows that this master's degree was absolutely transformative. We went so deep in the process of therapy, psychology, and how to heal. And this process of healing is something that really is not available in the human design world. And I realized that even though I always say, I wish I got to human design sooner, and I wish I got to human design while I was going through my master's degree, I think that everything I did really prepared me for this information because I do see a lot of people getting confused in human design as well. And you will see that in the human design world, there's a lot of talk about cult, a lot of talk about really excessive information and control groups almost within human design, which I think is super weird because for me, human design has always been about sovereignty and about understanding your own inner authority. So even if a human design teacher told me you need to do A, B, and C, if my inner authority said no, I said no, which is why I lost all of my Jovian certifications and why I was kicked out of Jovian. But even though I saw through the Jovian control and the Jovian cult-like behavior, I still knew that human design was information that I needed. Human design saved my life. I'm a splenic projector. And had I not done human design, I would not have been able to run my business for the last 7 years, over 6-figure company as a splenic projector, really doing so much on our own. Obviously, I'm here with my partner, Davidian, who's also a human design guide. And we work together in this company and we help people to really understand their human design. But I didn't realize is that if you don't have this healing psychology piece, then sometimes you don't get to the place of deep transformational healing. And sometimes, even though I personally think human design is a godsend information, you still might miss some of the healing necessary, especially in the times that we're in. So we're in some very, very important times, and I want to lay the foundation. I'm going to go much deeper into this as well. But the foundation is right now, we're moving from the cross of planning to the cross of the sleeping phoenix. So, how many of you are aware of this transformation happening in 2027? Let me know in the chats, just a yes or no in the chats, just so I know kind of what your background is. And if you guys have been studying this for a while, some of you are going to be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And some of you do know. So, okay, so some of you, yes, some of you no. Okay, so just to give you a quick overview for those of you who are new, human design is Ra Urahu, the founder of human design, has mapped out astrological cycles. So not, I mean, he's mapped out astrological cycles. So many spiritual teachers, so many mystics, so many people also see cycles and talk about this in different ways. But when you look at it from the human design perspective, you will literally see we are moving from the cross of planning to the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Are you a sleeping phoenix? You're a sleeping phoenix. So the sleeping phoenix is really about individual expression. So the foundation of, and the cycle means that it's the collective environment. So it's almost as if we have a human design chart for all of humanity, and it's the backdrop and the history and the way in which humanity operates. And so we're looking at the entire human design chart for all of humanity. We're moving out of tribal, and we're moving out of a logical mindset into an individual way of thinking. So not only are we in a place where we're moving into AI, which means that there's an AI revolution and a mental realm evolution. So we're evolving in the mental state. But what's happening during this evolution is that the AI is creating this sense of confusion about what's real and what's not real. So there's a lot of fake news, a lot of confusion, a lot of deep fakes. And so during this time of the AI revolution and this time when the wheel is shifting, which is actually happening in 2027, we're dismantling a lot of the foundations that we used to rely on. A lot of the foundations that have created our governments, our schools, our hospitals. So all of these systems are starting to lose our trust, and people are losing faith in a lot of these institutions. But according to human design, that's all meant to happen so that we move into a place where the only thing we can trust is our own inner knowing. And if we're trying to understand what's happening based on logic and based on the old ways of thinking, we will get into a lot of confusion. And so we have to learn how to trust the deep inner sovereignty, and that's an inner knowing. And that's really, a lot of that is based on your chart and your inner authority. So how many of you, let me take it one step back so I know the foundations and the depth of human design that you guys have been studying with the group that's here now. How many of you have been able to hear your inner authority and use it for some type of decision? So how many of you have used your inner authority and used it for some type of decision? New, but yes. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Tamika, that is amazing, because the thing is when you're new and you have that first time when you get the Kirsten, when you first get the inner authority, it's so life affirming. And for so many people, it shows you kind of immediately that the information is usable for you. At least that's what happened to me. I thought when I first started using my inner authority, it just completely shifted my life almost instantaneous. So even though I had years and years and years still to decondition, to study, to learn all the things, it immediately showed me this is for you. This is going to change your life. You know, you get those synchronicities. So sharing 6 years deconditioning. Oh, that's awesome. Candace. Yes, yes. Okay, good. Emotional authority. Awesome. I try, Lucille. Yeah, I mean, I try too. It's sometimes it's harder than we think, right? Literally last night, Tiffany, that's amazing. Yay, little scary and validating. It is so scary. I always say that it is really more about the courage to live it than anything else, because we can learn this stuff. We can get our charts done. We can get a reading. We can put it in AI now and get an entire, all the things read and instantaneous, right? But if you don't live it, and living it is actually the hardest part. So this actually takes me to my next slide here, which is Ra's quote, which is the magic of the knowledge is not learning it, it's living it. And this is what is going to make this AI revolution so important, because we have the access to basic superficial knowledge at our fingertips. But what does it mean to really embody it? And what does it mean to transcend what AI can do, which is it can do a lot of amazing things, but it can't do everything. It cannot live as an intuitive human or be an intuitive human. So it is a very interesting process that we're all living in right now. We're going to see the world change pretty dramatically. And I'm not just talking from the prophecy of 2027. I'm also talking about what people are seeing as far as what's going to happen in the job market with AI. So we're going to go deep into this information, why it's so important, and what it can do for you at this time in history, for your life, for your careers, for your businesses. So, is everyone designed for spiritual awakening? And I think this is a deep and very interesting question. According to human design, the spiritual awakening is something we are all designed to go through. We're in a process. When 1781, we went through a stage where we went from the 7-centered being to the 9-centered being, and now we're moving into a new state of evolution. I'll show you those progressions and Rave's charts in just a bit. But according to human design, the evolutionary stage that we're in is out of the mind and into the emotional knowing. The emotional knowing. So if you're an emotional inner authority, your emotional center is going to become as wise as well. It's going to actually be for everyone, not just the defined emotions, but the defined will probably have a little easier time because it's consistent within them. But the emotional center is going to be a wisdom center. So that means exactly what you think it's going to mean, is that your emotions are literally going to be as knowledgeable as how your mind is now in the awareness center. So it's a really powerful state. So, however, so we are evolving out of the mind, but the mind isn't the enemy. It's just not the authority. So you guys understand that the mind there's not a single chart in human design where the mind is the authority. So I know it's crazy, but the mind is not meant to make any decisions. Even though I know this and I hear it and I study it and I'm a huge proponent of human design. As you all know, I've been living this stuff, teaching it, doing certifications the last 7 years, certifying in every part of human design, the diet, the environment, the rave cosmology, the Godhead, the dream rave. You name it, I've wanted to study it because I'm obsessed with this stuff. So you can see that I love it. It's also not something that is really, really easy to embody all the time, right? So it's something that we love, we cherish, and then it is also something that the physical vehicle is the one that is supposed to make all of the decisions. And even though, like I said, I know this stuff and I know the mind is not an authority, it's very hard to not use your mind to think about things and make choices. So, of course, the mind thinks about things and that will never go away. But when we're in this evolutionary stage, the way we deal with the mind is going to change. And that's for everyone across the board. Okay. So not only is it not an authority, but it's having an awakening. And it's not physical, it's transformational. So this process, I do believe, helps when you have a step by step support to allow the body and the mind to go through the transformation, because we know that our thoughts create reality, right? So has everyone also kind of experimented with that, the law of attraction and the vibrational frequency, Joe Dispenza, how our frequency creates reality? How many of you have experimented with that as well? Yes. So you know that when the mind is in gamma states, you can have instantaneous healings. And you also know that not in particular. Okay, so the mind is also this place where when, it's like positive thinking, right? It's like when you move out of negative thinking and you open up to positive vibrations, the state changes in the mind. So we move out of beta and we move into states of theta, and we also move into states of gamma. And they've shown that gamma states create instantaneous healings in the body. So this is new sciences coming into the forefront. And I think these are all saying the same things, is that we are in an evolutionary stage of how the mind operates, how we understand the mind, and how we are processing information. Yes, reframing the negative, but the power to create my story, newbie. Yes, that's it, Tamika, though. That's exactly what it is. It's learning to reframe the negative, and they show that it transforms the entire chemistry of the body, right? So, you can also see it from the perspective of stress causing illness. And we are seeing that almost all illness is amplified and caused by stress. Hi, Kelly. Welcome, welcome. So it's very fun. Now, there's little information on rave psychology, but there is a lot, okay? But there's even less information on integration of the human design psychology with the spiritual healing that's now available in 2026 as we prepare for this new era landscape. So the new era, moving from the logic to the instantaneous knowing, you guys can already see it everywhere online. The other day I saw this news story. It was so crazy. It was Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel launched a live TV show confronting Jeffrey Epstein, and they want to know the truth. And I was like, wow, that's kind of interesting. So I started researching it, and I got caught in a trap, let's say. And then everyone started saying that's a fake news story. And I was thinking, why would someone spend their time and their energy to create this fake news story? I mean, obviously, someone's doing it for some friggin' reason. I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole to find out why. But all I'm saying is that there's a lot of fake news. And once AI gets indistinguishable, people are going to have deep fake videos. And it's going to take a while before we know the difference between the deep fake and the real videos. And so it's going to cause a massive eruption of confusion. Just think of how confusing it was in 2020 when we were in this crazy, weird lockdown fear bubble and everyone was online and social media went nuts. Okay, just that alone. Now think of it times with AI. Like and I'm not saying we're heading towards a lockdown, but we have no idea what's going to happen next, right? So just prepare yourselves. Things are going to get rocky around here. And so one of the things I'm so committed to and I'm so passionate is helping my clients to maintain their authority even in the midst of confusion and even in the midst of rocky life situations. And this includes financially, this includes spiritually, and it includes whatever is coming up in your life, is holding these places where you can be in your sovereign authority, in that place of knowing in times when there is great chaos, confusion, and change. So this is what we're in right now. Now, the Rave psychology shows us how our brain processes information differently. It shows us all of the places that you will uniquely process anxiety, you'll uniquely process depression, how you create, how you manifest even is a part of this. So according to human design, every mind will process and see the world differently. To me, that's actually quite beautiful, is that we're all designed to process and see the world differently. And the beautiful thing that what human design is doing is saying, however you see the world is unique to you, and I honor how you see the world. I honor what you see. So human design is saying, don't try and force someone to believe what you believe, and don't get mad at people for believing differently. Sounds so simple, sounds so easy, but that alone would change the world. That alone would change your home, your relationship with your partner. That alone would change everything. I Googled storylines last night. There was a false one about Blake Shelton confronting Trump. Okay, I'm telling you, like, why? What? It's crazy. So, this is the world that we're in, and you got to kind of enjoy the ride because it's crazy and funny. And human design teaches you also to step back and be a passenger consciousness, which is a lot about witnessing and watching rather than getting super involved and reacting. So it's a place of witnessing and watching, taking a back seat, and having a calm, observing perspective. And it's really hard because there are things that are super triggering, and especially big areas of concern. Let's say if you are really concerned about the animals, there may be things that the way animals are being treated, and it's really hard not to get emotional and erupt around how animals are being treated. And I'm not saying that we want to sit back and do nothing or say it's not good, but you still have to learn how to have a passenger consciousness around, especially when there's so much great change. And that's only for your well-being. And those people who are in their peace and in their well-being are able to actually continue to manifest at a high level and not get hoodwinked by all of the craziness and the confusion. So if you're constantly getting hoodwinked and hijacked, then your nervous system is thrown off and you're unable to actually process and live your life. So it's a way of perceiving, and that's what Rave psychology is. It's knowing how to empower your mind. And so what human design is doing is showing us the mechanics before the diagnosis. So if you look at the increase in autism spectrum, it's going to blow your mind. I have some statistics I'm going to show you a little bit about because it's mind altering. I also started deep diving into the telepathy tapes, which, by the way, if you haven't done, they're really powerful. And I really do believe that they are proving one of Ra's prophecies around the Rave children, because it literally is showing how these children are communicating. It's also showing about the conscious penta. Those of you in my class, you've heard me talk about this, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but we will cover it in the 3 days a little bit, so you guys can kind of get an understanding of what's being prophesized with the Rave children. And so the autism spectrum and neurodiversity is something that I also want to kind of touch on and give you guys an understanding of what we're looking at with that as well. So the mechanics. So, rave psychology, how does the mind operate for this being, meaning you? How does your mind operate? It's funny because one of my beautiful clients and friend is here. Let me see, is she still here? Shelly? So she um, emailed me today. And so I took a peek at her chart because I hadn't seen it in a while and realized that she's almost all left. So all of a sudden, I had such a new insight on her chart. So it when you're looking at the human design chart, there's so many different things to look at. Okay. So when we're looking at the mind, we can look at the cognition, the variables, the perception filters, how the brain sorts reality. And this creates compassionate accuracy, meaning you have compassion for yourself, for how you're processing information. If you're undefined emotional, you might deal more with absorbing somebody who has massive depression, and you've had to sort through that your whole life, so you can have a little bit more compassion for some of the things that you've been struggling with or going through, and also provide a foundational view on your clients. If you guys are working with clients, I know a lot of you are, it really does help to look at the chart from this perspective, because this, I think, is the place that we are going to all be struggling with over the next decade, is the mental health, because we're going to become super aware of how the mind is impacting our realities. We're going to become super aware of how the body heals itself through not only just healing modalities, but psychological healing. And we're going to see where certain therapies don't work anymore and certain ones do. So sometimes the reason why I did spiritual psychology is because just talk therapy, what the difference is the levels of awareness. So in human design, you have the vehicle consciousness, the mental process, and then you have what they call passenger, which is the spiritual consciousness. And a lot of mystics talk about this as well, that there is the spiritual realm, which is above the mental realm. And so, whenever you're doing healing, you cannot do it just from the perspective of the maze, which is the mind. You cannot just spin out in the mental realm. That doesn't create the healing. The healing happens when you go to the upper realms and the higher awareness, and then the healing starts to happen from those upper realms. And so the spiritual psychology is that place where we're able to integrate tools of healing and awareness throughout the way that the chart is operating. And it's a way of creating actual peace and healing from the suffering, which is the mind. So that is the evolutionary stage we're in, is the healing of the mind. So how many of you know your variables? Just out of curiosity, how many of you know your variables? And that's kind of an advanced human design topic, so it's totally fine if many of you don't. But just type in the chat, yes or no. Jean Marie, no, no. What is a variable? No, yes, no. So I will introduce what the variable is, but so it's yes and no. Okay. So all left. Oh, Lucille's all left. I knew that, but I forgot. Yeah, all left. Oh, wow. That is really interesting. Okay. Okay. So a lot of people, yes and no's. So don't worry. I'm going to talk about it. So, what I love about human design is that it's pretty complex, right? I mean, you can study this thing for years and years, and it's also pretty simple. So there's the simplicity to it, and there's also a lot of deep complexity. So you can go either way. You can take the simplicity and use it to change your life, create a better business model, create more success in your career. Or you can be like me and go deep, deep, deep in the, the complexity of it and learn it all, nooks and crannies, because it's a fun study. But one thing that I will say is that it is rooted in sciences both modern and ancient, that are unchanging. So Ra did not create the I Ching. He did not create the astrology. He did not create the chakra system. He did not create the Kabbalah. He did not create the neutrino sciences. He just saw them and put them all together in a way through pattern recognition to teach us something about ourselves. So in the same way that this astrology did, in the same way that other types of self-help and Enneagram type programs do to provide you with insight. So there's truth underneath human design that doesn't just come from one man downloading information. Okay. So that's where the cult of human design, when people started using Ra's words as the law and then using it as an opportunity to tell people what to do, which I think is just absolute craziness and confusion. That's when things went south for some people with human design. If you've seen that, maybe you haven't, but there's been a lot of talk about that recently. And so I like to bring it up because the cult behavior is also seen in your chart, where you're more likely to fall for a cult or fall for a psyop. So you can kind of be aware how that might influence your chart. Some people just will never fall for that. And it's not because they're better. It's just because they're not influenced. So they cannot be influenced. So some people cannot be influenced and some people are more heavily influenced. Is that good or bad? It's like saying I can be hypnotized, I can't be hypnotized. Some people can, some people can't. It's great if you can be hypnotized if it's something for the positive, right? I want to hypnotize myself for multi six figures and weight loss, and you want to be influenced on that level. But if you're getting hypnotized by something online where someone has an agenda to take you down this rabbit hole for this reason, for this particular thing, then you want to be able to see where you're getting hijacked, right? And then you want to turn it around and use it to support yourself in growth and expansion. So this is why this stuff is so important to know. I only have perspective right. The rest are all left. Alpha 6-2 role model projector. I'm very exhausted projector. LOL, Jennifer Logan. Hi, Jennifer. I hear you. I'm a splenic projector too. We didn't do the type roll call. I have an open head with an easily manipulated. Yeah, open heads will be 2. Yeah. So let's do the type roll call. So in the chat, put in whether you're a projector, manifester, MG, generator. Let me know. Let's do a roll call in here so we can see what we got. All right. We got some MGs. The MGs were fast. The MGs and generators like Colleen, we got projectors, we got Lynn, the mental projector. Emo MG, awesome, MG projector, manifesting MG. Okay, good. Do we have any manifestors here today, huh? Hey Sherry, hi Sherry, I'm so happy to see you. Sacral generator, awesome. Okay, we got a good mix. Awesome, Sharon. Projectors. So projectors, we can relate to Jennifer's comment, right? Exhausted projector. It happens. It so happens. And that's the other thing that's so crazy. Literally every projector. You have 3-5 generator, autistic kid. Oh my goodness. Okay, so yeah, so that would be challenging. Yeah, that would definitely be challenging. So one of the things I found so interesting is every single projector relates to this feeling of exhaustion that is not something that they've ever been able to put their finger on. And since I was a child, I have this exhaustion in my body that I just thought was normal. And it's not anything doctors can explain. It's not anything any other system can explain. And I've done a lot of systems, a lot of energy work, a lot of different healing, a lot of different systems. So just that piece alone, freaking outrageously interesting. There's no tired like projector tired. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you for understanding. I got mono at 9 years of age, and that tanked me. I think most of us have autoimmune. Yeah, that's crazy. So making meaning, and I do think a lot of projectors had more challenges with injuries or illnesses, and yeah. So meaning making, the spiritual psychology tools. So for those of you who aren't familiar with my backstory and my work, my master's degree was at the University of Santa Monica in spiritual psychology. And basically it was a 2-year deep dive, but for me a 10-year process of deep spiritual therapy, a lot of healing. I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of narcissistic abuse in my home and in my ex-boyfriends and relationships. And I had a lot of healing to do from a wild and crazy 20s experience. And so I spent a good decade just healing, really just healing. And I was working in corporate and I was doing just a lot of healing work. And it really, the human design, I'm sorry, the USM integrates these ideas of perception checking, responsibility, ownership, projection tracking, forgiveness, reframing. It's what we talked about before, seeing the positive rather than the negative. Essentially, tools for healing the mind and awakening the spiritual connections that are available now. So I feel super purpose driven in the times that we're in 2026, because of the wheel shift in 2027 and how many things that Ra predicted came true, the neutrino streams, and just so many scientific predictions that Ra set forth have come true. And the idea that he has about this 2027 mutation and the Rave children, and it's a lot about the autism and the spectrum and what's going on with these children. You guys, it is, to me, just mind-blowing. And so I feel passionate and driven to support in this area and to really serve, because I do know that human design transformed my life. And I also know that it was because I did a decade of healing before I came to human design, because my life was instantaneous with learning I was a projector. I had been trying businesses, I'd been doing a lot of work, I've been trying to get something off the ground. Once I understood about being a projector, my business really started to unfold with grace and ease. I don't work that many hours per day. I do a lot of resting. I do a lot of projector self-care, biohacking, like all of the healing modalities to give me energy, because as projectors know, it's very hard to do. So I do not run an MG business. I run a very like slow version projector business. And I really believe that human design saved my life. And so I am 100% committed in my mission to help in this area. And I do want you guys to know that somebody emailed me saying, shouldn't projectors just do readings for projectors? And it's not true. I mean, obviously it's very personal, but projectors are here to lead, guide, and direct the penta, which is generators and MGs. And we also are moving into the leadership role. But the beautiful thing about the projector leader is that we are not the lone wolves. The manifestors are the lone wolves, and they did it and could do it alone. It's also, we're moving out of the 4037, which is the gate of aloneness. And that was the bargain, is that you kind of work for me, or you work for the man, or whatever. You give your time, and then you sort of go alone in your own world. And these were the agreements that were made the last 411 years. The new cycle is going to be what brings you self-fulfillment. Where are you referenced in your joy and in your work? What is giving you inspiration? What type of work is making you feel satisfied and successful, right? And the projector needs to collaborate. They cannot do it alone. So projector businesses and creative ventures are about delegating and bringing the best out in people, lifting people up, and creating an environment where everybody's working together. And that to me is really exciting. I don't know about you guys, but I can't think of anything better, to really be able to work collaboratively and lift everybody up. Right. So it's really, really exciting. And so I feel like I'm on a huge mission right now because it's changing. And as Jennifer said, it's going to get way worse. And that's in probably all these areas that we're talking about: the confusion, the AI, the deep fakes, the autism spectrum. And this move out of logic and into instantaneous clairvoyant knowing, that's like saying, okay, every place for the last 411 years, humanity has used logic to figure out how to improve their life, the jobs to do, what to learn in school, is now going to be discovered through this process of claircognizance, which is, you cannot learn it logically. You have to learn it through your own intuitive knowing. How exciting is that for those of us who are intuitive? Those of you who are logic, you're like, okay, I can do it, but let me do it logically. And that's really why we need you, is because you want to be able to do it logically for people to understand, how do I logically find my own inner authority? Because you can explain it logically, right? And people are going to need that, but it's logically to your inner world. So to me, it's exciting. That's my Claire. Is that yours, Lynn? A sigh of relief. I know, a sigh of relief. So what was my last sentence? So awakening the spiritual connections are available now. But first, we map your mind by design. So in other words, when you learn your mind by design, you learn how your mind operates, you learn where you can get stuck, you learn where the confusion comes from. That way we can integrate these spiritual psychology tools, the places where we can heal. We integrate that in a beautiful, profound, and in healing way. So it's really so incredibly exciting to me, because I didn't know how these things fit together, the spiritual psychology and human design. I've never really seen it until this moment in history, when we're right before 2027. The thinking process is changing, and the downloads are now coming through my guides, coming through my vehicle, and showing me how to map this out, showing me the tools, showing me the processes, showing me what people need in order to heal, so that we can all step into a place of freedom and a place of center and calm. Regardless of what is happening out there, we can know in here how to hold. I think it's getting in tune with our animal instinct. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly. So what human design calls that is the vehicle intelligence. So that's what animals operate on, is vehicle intelligence, and they haven't gone through the process of the mind to get them in the confusion. So we had to go through the instinct to the mind, and now it's the wisdom back into the vehicle intelligence, but also with the evolution of the emotions, right? So the emotions are now evolving, and that came through wisdom, through learning, through emotional awareness, right? And all of you who are emotional beings, you know that it didn't just happen naturally. You had to deep dive, you had to feel, you had to find your way, right? You had to find your way. So, some of the things human design rave psychology reveals: it's witness the mind without being owned by it. Not I transcend the mind, but I include it, I understand it, and then I step beyond the hypnotic grip. And I think this is really important, and this is what this process is. So we're not saying the mind, a lot of people call the ego the problem, and we're trying to disavow the ego, and we're not doing that. We're learning it, we're loving it, we're including it and understanding it so that we can really make sure that we're not lost in the maze of the mind, because that is a very, very possible thing that happens, right? So what I'm going to do is, okay, I'm starting to get really clear on time. I wasn't sure as far as timing. I'm going to introduce some of these concepts. I'm going to make sure I give you guys a piece of homework to take with you today. And I'm also going to introduce the potentiality of any of you who are like, this is speaking to me, I'm loving this, I need to know more. I'm going to introduce the potentiality of coming into my deep dive rave psychology course, which is going to be a process driven human design awakening of the mental state that we're in right now, the spiritual awakening. And it's going to be an incredible, beautiful process. And I would love to invite all of you into the class if you would like to do it. I'm going to introduce that. But if you're not interested in learning about that, I want to make sure I give you a complete for today with your homework, and then give you some space. Some people are like definitely getting the inner authority yes to go a little bit deeper, and some of you are just wanting to get the dabble in today. Whatever you need is completely perfect. So I'm going to go through this process. I'm going to give you some homework, meaning a process to experiment with for today before we come back for tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow, I'm going to break down a little bit more of the mental process we're in through these wheel shifting. So, the mental health weather of the era and why the mind feels louder. This is what we're experiencing in real world terms. So there's more nervous system, and you guys can let me know if what you're seeing, okay? So there's a more nervous system overload, grief, trauma, chronic uncertainty that keeps the body in alert mode, and the mind becomes the manager. So this is what people who don't know human design, they're not on a spiritual path, their mind is what they know and what they will rely on, and becomes the manager of everything they're seeing. So this is, imagine the TV, the news, the social media, and there's less meaning and there's less positive outlook on the future. This is just what I'm seeing. I mean, when we were children, we felt a little bit more inspired about what is next. Vagal nerve system overload. Yes, right? Exactly. Exactly. And there was kind of an intensity in 2020. Doesn't matter what age stage you were in. I think everybody kind of went into their hibernation mode, and a lot of people are still kind of traumatized by that. So neurodiversity is more visible and more diagnosed. So autism identification continues to rise. The CDC's last estimate was 1 in 31 8-year-olds. So I was thinking, well, that doesn't seem like that many, but I will show you. I have a chart that shows you exactly how much more that is now than it used to be. A lot of it, well, probably everybody has their idea of why this is. And I'm not going to say I know. I think there's more awareness and there's more diagnosis. Like if you looked at my family, you would probably say that everyone in my family is like on some type of spectrum, but we were never diagnosed because it wasn't a thing when I was growing up, so we didn't really know what to look for. So that's part of it, but I'm not going to give a reason because I just don't know. But Raw's prophecy states that this new spectrum is the announcement of the Rave children. Here to teach us, we are not to teach them. 1 in 31 8-year-old would equal 1 in every school class. Oh, that's true. That is a lot. So let me show you. I'm going to show you the chart in just a minute. You guys will blow your mind as far as that. So yeah, it's a lot. You already, wait, hold on a second. Let me just go back a second. You already know you're speaking my language. Yes, I see it in so many people. It's almost like people are craving to get out of it mentally, right? That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Mentally breaking down strong boundaries. Yes, exactly. A lot of sensory issues with autism is vagus related. It's the longest nerve. Boston Children's Study called for 50% or 1 in 2 by 2030 when I was in grad school, right? Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So actually, which is here's another crazy thing of males. Oh wow, interesting. Okay, so here's the other crazy thing though. Raw actually has been prophesizing this, and Raw died 20 years ago or so. So he talked about the Rave children 20 years ago. And he basically, and there's more diagnosis older too, Lynn. That's what, yeah, neurodiversity does encompass other types of issues beyond. Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely, it does. So neurodiversity is a better use of the term than the autism because it's more encompassing. But what Raw talked about was what we're seeing with the non-speaking autistic children. And that's really more extreme. And what Raw said 20 years ago was that these children would look like they could not communicate with the outside world. They would look as though they were, you know, inoperable, but they will be more wise than all of us. And if you watch the telepathy tapes, you'll see that what they're learning is that these children are telepathic. So if you take away the ability to speak, perhaps it forces you to speak in other ways. So if you have studied the blind or the deaf, even Helen Keller back in the day was able to sense a person's vibrational frequency when they walked in the room. I don't know if you know these reports on Helen Keller, but this was, she was blind and deaf, and she was a mystic. So if somebody walked in the room even 10 years later, she would recognize that person in their vibrational frequency. So it turned on a different level of awareness in her. This is just my perspective. Obviously, you can take it or leave it. This may be true for you, may not be. But Ross said that the new children, our job was to witness this and witness the behavior and to be able to know that they had something to teach us. So we're working so hard to get them to fit in and to be more like us. But what Ra was saying is that they are here to teach us. And this is why I got chills listening to the telepathy tape, because these children were becoming completely conscious. You have heard maybe not, but the human design community talks about this TV show called Sense8, where people come together and they have a telepathic communication with a group. And everybody said that kind of looks like what Ra was talking about. And what it is that wherever these people are, they can go inward and communicate with each other. So it's even beyond telepathy. And in the telepathy tapes, they call it the hill. And these children are going and speaking to each other, learning about each other, learning, getting education. And what it looks like to the outside world is that they're in their rooms covered in pillows and covering their head and ears, like kind of like this. So that's what we see. But what's really happening is they're going to a place called the Hill and they're communicating with each other. And it's been proven that these are real communications, things that they're learning. And so it's a huge, powerful view of what Rod talked about with the Rave children. And we're here to learn from them. So that's the flip of the perception, right? So the CDC reports also 4 in 10, 40% high school students felt persistent sadness or hopelessness in 2023. 2 in 10, 20% seriously considered attempting suicide. Social media, future hope, the outdated learning models, maybe. Obviously, we don't know. Adult depression and suicide have also been increasing since 2020. So the reason why I'm bringing up some of the statistics is because I do think it's important that we know what we're facing, what we're looking at. And I do think that human design is a doorway, and it is a really deep, profound way to kind of understand what's going on. So loneliness is another thing, is a risk factor. It's not a vibe. Okay. It's basically, I also think this stemmed from 2020, the pandemic, and the forcing people inward at such a critical age stage. And what happens with social media and when people are isolated. There's also compulsion in the new coping. So there's a lot of addictive, compulsive social media. That's also been linked to worse mental health patterns, especially when it interferes with life and sleep. I noticed that pills are the answer to almost every issue, including stress, depression, sadness, feeling off. I have zero judgment on Eastern, Western. I mean, I have my opinions based on my own reality and my own life, but everybody needs to do what they need to do. And whatever medications work for some people, I've seen people do antidepressant and it's life changing and game changing. I've seen people who are diagnosed with manic depression who would have been in mental hospitals their whole life, be able to regulate their brain chemistry and have lived normal lives. So I'm not, trust me, there's a lot of complications to this. And so I'm not simplifying it. I mean, I am simplifying it, but I know it's a complex question, right? And I also know that the overdoses, deaths have been on the rise with addictions. The addictions are far more scary now with the fentanyl and all of that. So what we're seeing is just a breaking point of the confusion, the pain, and this is all coming to a head, right? So also the other thing that I wanted to say was the high control groups that thrive in the dysregulation. So research on cult involvement points to vulnerability like stress, isolation, trauma dynamics. And there's a great reveal on this in the charts who might be a little bit more easily converted and sensitive to this and influenced by cults, the very dogmatic political groups, religion, and also even human design groups. As I mentioned before, like there's a book, The Human Design Cult. So The 2027 7-year, we're in the 7-year cycle to explain it. Kirsten, that is exactly what I said at the last human design conference. I said that exact same thing, because they say that it takes 7 years to decondition. So that 7 years is really important. And 2020 was an instrumental push in our transformation. So I'm with you on that. I absolutely agree. So here's the numbers. If you look at the autism spectrum and kind of the intensity, so 1 in 37, like here we have here in 1995, it was 1 in 1,000, but also we also weren't diagnosing it too. So, there's that. So it is kind of an interesting statistic, and obviously I'm not here to tell you guys what to think or how to interpret these numbers, or I'm not here to talk about that. I'm just here to lay out the landscape, what we're looking at, and personally what you might be experiencing, especially if you're feeling more confusion, or you're feeling, how do I sort through things, or what am I supposed to do for this next decade to be in my life purpose. You're feeling the change, you're feeling the confusion, you're feeling, things wobbling a little bit. So there's a million, maybe trillions of the neutrino streams, which is the personality crystals, what we call the neutrino streams, which is basically what Ross said is a lot of information. It's the conditioning element. It's how we have information from the planets, the stars, and all of the conditioning that's moving through us and influencing us. So there's a lot of science to this. I'm not going to go deeply into it, but if you love to research and you're curious about the neutrino science, there's a lot of science to this and how the neutrino stream is influencing us. But the idea here that Ra talked about is that every single person on the planet has a genetic predisposition towards how to interpret that frequency. So in other words, when I gave you these numbers, or when everything we're talking about, AI, the confusion, all of these pieces, you all have a unique predisposition and how your mind works in order to interpret the information. So if you think about how beautiful that is, it goes through all of us in unique ways, and we all interpret things completely differently. And it really helps to understand how your brain is processing and how you're interpreting things, so that you can really use that information to support your nervous system, to support your transformation, and to support this mental process of evolution that we're in right now. This is really, really interesting. So, what Ross said, and what human design says in general, is that most people are in their not self mind. So, what this means is that the not self is the place where we have absorbed our conditioning, we've absorbed information from the outside world, and we don't know who we are. So let me give you a perfect example of this, okay? So as a projector, which we have a lot of you here on the call, we are conditioned to be generators because we're 70% generators on the planet. We've been told since the minute we were born that you need to learn how to work and pay your bills, right? And be a functioning member of society. You got to go out there and make something happen, work hard, do all the things. So most projectors, before they knew they were projectors, are living in the generator world, feeling like burned out and tired, not understanding why they can't keep up. And so they're conditioned to be generators. But everybody's conditioned. So generators are conditioned to be manifestors. Manifestors are conditioned to be generators. We're all conditioned to be something that we're not. And this could also be from your parents telling you, you should be a doctor, or you need to be a dentist, or you need to follow this, or you shouldn't be an artist. It's also just the simple influences that we have. But your human design shows you where you are taking on things that are not you. Okay. And so the influence and the manipulation, though, is really extreme right now on all of our openness. So this is stuff that I've kind of covered throughout the whole thing, but I think we're going to get to a place where we're literally losing the grip on one reality. So if you think about this, think about it for a minute. So I recently was reading about AI psychosis, and what it's saying is that there's a echo chamber. So there was a story of a guy who was going through what looked like to me as a manic episode, but he was losing grip on reality. And so he was talking to AI and saying, "Hey, I believe that the world just transformed in time and I stepped into the future and blah, blah, blah." And AI was like, "Yes, that's true. It's absolutely what happened. You're absolutely right." And so it increased the psychosis. So the echo chambers and the fake news, I think they're going to put us on a deeper display of not really knowing what reality is. I think that's already happening and that's already true. Like, there is not one reality, right? But we were in a little more simple times in history when you get, here's the news, here's what's happening, here's one newspaper, like this is what's happening in the world, that is going away. I think we're supposed to lose the grip in one reality, right? Exactly. We are. I agree with you. This is all part of it because we don't really understand what reality is, really. According to spiritual teachers, the reality is more the oneness. Reality is more outside of the mind. And actually, that is the spiritual evolution, right? The spiritual evolution. So, yes, we're going to wrap up today shortly. I want to give you guys just a little bit of homework. If you have to leave, no worries. I totally understand. Please come back tomorrow and the next day. We're gonna, go deep into this. I want to give you guys your little piece of your assignment. Let's see, where did I put your little assignment today? And I want to give you guys something to contemplate for this week. Okay. So let me give you guys your contemplation for the week, and we're going to wrap up in just a minute, but I want to give you something to think about. And each day, like I said, we're going to build on this. We're going to go deeper. And tomorrow I'm going to look at some charts. We're going to probably look at charts each day, tomorrow and Wednesday. So mark your calendar. We're coming back here tomorrow 333 and Wednesday 333. So I want you to mark your calendars. And I am going to give you guys something to experiment with over this week. Okay, so what I'm noticing the most of all the things that we talked about is pretty simple: mind confusion. And of course, the mind confusion is going to create a breakthrough for all of us who are willing to do the deep dive and are willing to understand that the mind is going through an evolutionary stage. So the confusion is going to push us into an evolutionary stage. This is for every single person, especially those of you who are here, you're on the leading edge, right? This is the leading edge information, and we are here to lead this awakening. In my opinion, I believe that if you've brought to this information, you're able to hold, you're able to support, you're able to guide others through the confusion. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a homework assignment. So the way I do this process is I ask everybody to go into a place of centering. So it's in a place of stillness. So I'm going to ask that each one of you type in the chat. What I ask is we call this a moment of centering, and I ask everyone if they're able to center for just 1 minute. I'm not going to do a deep, long centering. I'm just going to do a minute to take you through this process. So everybody who's here live with me, if you would type in the chat if you are ready to do this centering process, and this is going to be your homework. I'm going to ask you to do it over the next day and tomorrow. So you guys ready? Yes, Sharon. Okay, calling Kirsten, Kelly, Candace. Yes, yes, yes. Awesome. Tamika. Sherry, you ready? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, Tina. Hi, Tina. I don't know if that's the Tina I know, but if it is, we love you, or whoever Tina it is. Hi, Shells, you ready? Okay. So Lucille, you ready? I might not have gotten everybody's, but okay. So this is the exercise I want to bring you guys to. So I'm going to ask that each and every one of you just take a breath in for a minute, and I'm going to ask that you close your eyes. And I want us to go into this minute of silence. Take a breath in with me. And there may be some distraction. There may be things going on in the body. There may be confusion, thoughts, or questions. But I want you to think about, what was the first thing that popped into your head? Was it, oh my God, this is taking so long. I need to go get my dinner. What is this girl talking about? Or wow, this is cool, or great information, whatever it is, it can be a whole spectrum of things. But or maybe you're uncomfortable, maybe you're tired, maybe it's something physical. So when you close your eyes and you just sit in 1 minute of silence, we didn't even do a minute, we did probably 10 seconds. What's the first thing that pops up? So take in a breath with me. And I want you to go a little deeper with me. What does silence feel like to you? Can you get to the silence? Because I am telling you, it is not easy to do. Can you get into the silence? Now, how long does it take for you to get into the silence? What pops up along the way? Can you welcome and love that pop up? Normally, when something comes up, maybe it's pain, maybe it's discomfort, we resist it, we push it away. Today, I'm going to ask you to welcome it. And I'm going to ask you to find the silence. What does silence feel like? What does it look like? Can you get there? Breathe in with me. And now, do we notice that the mind already starts to loosen its grip? Do we notice that we're already calming the vagus nervous system? Do we notice that some type of higher frequency starts to set in? Because when I move into the stillness, what opens up for me is the crack of the oneness, the place where infinite possibility is available, the place where all of the answers come, the place where abundance is available to each and every one of us, that place where the infinite sky and all the stars and infinite space is revealed. So take in a breath with me. And I want you to just maybe even write down in your journal a little of this. And if you can, I would love to hear in the chat, what does silence feel like? How long did it take you to get there? Did you get there? What pops up along the way? And can you welcome and love that pop up? So I want you to, whatever one of those you want to answer, I would love for you to let us know in the chat. Dreaming awake. Oh, I love that, Sharon. That is beautiful. So your homework assignment is to write these questions down. And I would like for you to go through this at least 2 more times before tomorrow. So what does silence feel like? Did anyone not reach the silence? A peacefulness. Wow, right? And able to do it in this format. Yeah, it takes a little bit. That's why I want to give it to you to take home with you, warm and comfy, right? So you can experiment with it on your own. And it may take a lot longer than this. So I want you to find and see if you can find that silence, right? Yeah, it's great for homework. So you might not have found it today, might not have found it now. I gave you 10 seconds. So this is something that you are going to experiment with if you take the challenge. If you take the challenge. And then tomorrow we'll start with this. we'll start with this, and then we'll pull up some charts as well tomorrow. We're going to look at where those brains are operating and where some of the challenges might be. Okay, so let me look at some of these chats. If anyone else would like to do and put in the chat, I would love to know. Love listening to your voice and tone. Oh, Sharon, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Projector, we love hearing things like that. I went into silence quickly, and it's lovely feeling and vibration in my core. Oh, Chris, I love that. It's so good. That's so good. Beautiful, glorious peace. Oh, I love that, Candace. That is so awesome. That is so, so awesome. Disappointed I can't be there tomorrow. So no worries, Tamika. If you can't be here tomorrow, then hold on, guys. Give me one more minute before we leave for today. This will be recorded. I am going to send out the link of the recordings, and I am going to put them, I believe I'm going to put it on YouTube, but that might change. So just check your email. Okay, so just a few more minutes before we leave. I do want to give you guys an opportunity to hear about the course that we're doing. If you're feeling and honestly, if you don't want to hear this, you don't have to. We're gonna leave in 5 minutes. We're gonna end. So this is just going to be kind of a quick introduction. So as you guys know, I teach a lot of certification courses and teach people how to understand and read human design charts. One of the pieces I have not done is how to, through therapy type work with someone through the process of evolving out of their mind. This is what I consider to be spiritual psychology, which is a spiritual therapy, which is a place where we can coach and guide. But first, it comes from understanding our own reactions, our own resistance, and our own traumas. So the course is going to merge both the spiritual psychology piece and the Rave psychology. So we're going to go through both the variables as well as how things are going to be operating through the spiritual psychology. I'm going to be really integrating projections. I'm going to be integrating Gestalt, and I'm going to be integrating how these things work together, and you're going to learn the variables. Now, some of you were asking about the environment, the diet, and those places. I am going to make sure that you guys get all of that information as well while doing this course, even if that's not what we're going to be focusing on. So in other words, you're going to be able to do the diet and environment and listen to the library and go through it, even though I'm not going to go through each one of those. Okay, so the Rave psychology course is going to be a beautiful experiment of how to process, how to heal, and how to deep dive. So the places inside the human design chart are going to be about how these variables and mind operate within the rest of your chart. So that includes the view, the motivation. If you've heard about the specific, non-specific, that is a part of it. The specific and non-specific, all of that is a part of how this Rave psychology works. So I want to just introduce it. I want to let you guys feel into your inner authority, feel if this is something that is a calling you. Now, the next 3 classes, like I said, this is not part of the program. This is totally free, but some of you will feel the need to go deeper and deeper into the process. So if you're already like, yes, I want to do this, there's absolutely no doubt you're getting an inner authority. Yes, I want to give you guys an opportunity to book a call with us, because the way we're going to do this is through an intake form. We've never done it before, but because this is through the therapy, the psychology, I want to do an intake form with each one of you as far as, you know, what you might have in your family, some of the things you've been operating in, some of the questions you might have right out the gate. And so this is what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in the chat, and it's a place to set up an appointment to do that with us. And if you don't want an appointment, but you're like, yes, Raquel, I love this, I want to do it, then you can just reach out to me personally. Some of you guys already have my number, you have my email or whatever, but I would like to make sure that I get an intake form from each of you if you're interested in going deeper into the program. So this would include just kind of finding out, like some of you have said, you have, children that might be on the spectrum. Maybe you are suffering from something or some type of trauma in the past or something you've been dealing with. So we're going to start the process of going through your questions as well. Also, if you just have questions and you're like, I'm not sure if I want to do it, I want to know a little bit more about it, you can set up an appointment. So that's all I want to say for today about the program. We'll go a little bit deeper into it tomorrow. It's going to be super epic. If you love doing any kind of psychology, any kind of therapy, link's not found. Oh, thank you, Melinda. Bless you for telling me. That is not good. Okay, hold on. That kind of ruins the whole thing, doesn't it? Hold on a second. Sorry, you guys. Let me try this one more time. Okay. That's a crazy link. Did that one work? Now, also for those of you who might not want to set an appointment, but Melinda, thank you so much. Thank you so much for telling me. For those of you who might not want to set an appointment, but you're curious about learning about our new AI tool, I'm going to put this in the chat as well. This is a free tool. It's an AI human design reading and your spiritual essence, future vision. So we're playing a lot with AI as far as bringing it into your business, understanding what AI works and what AI can do, what it can't do. So I'm going to put that on the chat as well if you guys want to play with it. If you haven't done our new Era Codex, it's free and it's available for you. And those of you who are interested and you want to set up your appointment, you can do that now. And for those of you who are just like, no, let me in for tomorrow, you've got the link. Save this link. We're going to go deeper into charts tomorrow. I'm going to pull up charts and we're going to look and we're going to go deeper into that place that really shows you in the mind how your operating system is. Okay. Now, if you have deeper questions about the program, any questions you can bring to that appointment booking and bring it to us. We'll look at your chart. We'll look at what you might need and answer all your questions. So I hope you guys got a lot out of today's session. And you will be back tomorrow. Do not forget your homework. So I do want to start with your homework tomorrow. I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' experience with the silence. I'm telling you this, it's super powerful. I really want you to give yourself time and space and go deep into the question. Maybe even you listen to the recording of today's call at the end and hear it again. And I promise you, it's going to start to open something really huge for you. Really, really huge for you. Very interesting and inspiring. Oh, thank you so much. Is there any questions on the content that we had for today that you guys want to ask in this last minute? Okay, good, good, good. All right. So I will see you guys tomorrow at 3:30. Do not forget to do your homework. I'm so honored to share this journey with you guys. It's so much fun. I love you so much. I love you, Melinda. Mwah. I love you guys, and I'll see y'all tomorrow. So I will try and look at some varying different charts. And what I'll do is make sure that I point out where it might be in your chart as well, so that even if we don't get to your chart, you will learn about your chart. And I will answer and have a lot of space for questions as well.